Right? Let's jump straight into this explainer. If you live in Illinois, you know the deal. Changing seasons don't just mean changing temperatures. They mean rain. And with the heavy rain season right around the corner, there's actually a massive, highly coordinated effort happening right under our feet. Public works departments aren't just sitting around waiting for the sky to open up. No, they're aggressively ramping up storm drain maintenance weeks ahead of time to keep waterways clear and drastically cut down on street level flooding. It's a huge statewide push. Today, we're going to break down exactly how they do it, why it matters so much, and where you actually fit into the whole picture. So, when heavy rain hits Illinois, where does all that water actually go? Sounds like a simple question, right? But think of your neighborhood's drainage system kind of like the human body's circulatory system. When those intense Illinois storms roll through, and you know they can dump massive amounts of water in literally minutes, these underground arteries have to handle the deluge right then and there. Water is rushing off rooftops, tearing down driveways, surging along the curves, and funneling straight into these hidden pathways. Now, if the arteries are clear, great, the water flows safely away. But if they're not, well, that circulatory system backs up, and the water has nowhere to go. Which brings us to the invisible culprits of clogs. Just like plaque building up in an artery, there's all of this debris that silently accumulates in these drains all year round. We're talking about tons of leaves from those super windy autumns. We've got sediment and dirt just washing right off the roads. There's your everyday litter and trash that sweeps along the curbs. And, of course, uniquely for a place like Illinois, we have the debris from those brutal winter freeze-thaw cycles that literally break down asphalt and organic matter. All of this stuff creates a thick plaque that just blocks up those crucial water inlets. And here's the absolute crucial point. Clogged drains overflow. When that gross mix of leaves, sediment, and trash blocks the inlet, that water has to find another path. It rapidly pulls onto our roads, making them super dangerous or even totally impassable. It floods our sidewalks, and worst of all, it spills right over onto private property, legitimately threatening homes and businesses. This is a very real, immediate threat, and honestly, it perfectly illustrates exactly why local governments absolutely have to start this prep work weeks before the peak rain even starts. It's literally a race against the clock. So, let's look at the mechanics of maintenance, how local public works actually clear the way. Instead of just waiting around and reacting when it floods, municipalities use a really proactive, methodical process to build a line of defense. First, crews inspect known trouble spots. They're checking out those constantly backed up intersections, low-lying roads, and areas near parks. Second, they physically get in there and clear out the inlets and catch basins, targeting that exact buildup we just talked about. And third, they verify the flow paths and grates. They have to make sure the connected drainage structures are functioning exactly as designed. Plus, water quality is actually a factor here too, since runoff carries pollutants that these crews have to carefully manage. Now, this requires some strategic triage, specifically prioritizing high-risk infrastructure. Because, let's be real, public works resources, equipment, and time are totally finite. So how do they pick where to dig out the debris first? Well, it takes a really calculated logic. They have to target high-priority zones, where drainage is absolutely vital. We're talking areas with a documented history of flooding, corridors with heavy traffic, and absolutely crucially, routes used by emergency services like fire trucks and ambulances. Oh, and neighborhoods with older, aging infrastructure that naturally struggle with runoff. After those are secured, they move on to secondary considerations, like standard residential zones without chronic pooling, or areas lucky enough to have newer, more efficient infrastructure. It's a total balancing act. And these public works departments aren't operating in a vacuum either. To be as efficient as possible, they actually tightly coordinate their schedules with other city departments. For instance, they'll sync up with road construction crews so they can clean the drains without causing total chaos during active construction. They also work right alongside sanitation teams and municipal landscaping crews. Why? Well, imagine a landscaping crew cutting grass down a median. You definitely want to coordinate so that freshly cut yard waste doesn't immediately wash into a drain you literally just cleaned. It's a massive logistical dance. But here's where we get to the residents' crucial role and how you can prevent neighborhood flooding. We've talked a lot about the macro level, the city's job. Now let's talk about your street, because keeping the system working is 100% a shared responsibility. The city handles the heavy lifting, right? The massive vacuuming, checking structural integrity, verifying flow paths, and managing that polluted runoff. But the residents' job, that comes down to everyday actions. It's keeping grass clippings out of the grates when you mow. It's making sure your trash is actually secure so it doesn't flow into the street. And it's absolutely avoiding dumping yard waste into the gutters. Those might seem like tiny things, but you are literally keeping the top layer clear so the underground infrastructure can do its job. Public works officials have this saying that really hits the nail on the head. Public participation matters, especially between scheduled cleanings. City crews just can't be everywhere at once. Think about it. Once they clean your street's drain, they move on. If a windstorm blows a giant pile of leaves onto that grate the very next day, the drain is compromised all over again. When the public steps in to sweep up those leaves, it directly reduces the overwhelming burden on crews after a storm hits. You are literally the frontline defense between those cleanings. You're also the eyes and ears of the city during the actual rain event. When those heavy downpours start, you've got a really powerful tool to use. Many cities now have online portals or dedicated storm drain hotlines, and they actually want you to use them. If you see a blocked inlet or some unusual pooling on your street in real time, report it. Honestly, don't just assume your neighbor already called it in. When you provide that real-time info, emergency teams can dispatch way quicker to handle critical issues before property damage actually happens. But we definitely need to set some realistic expectations here about extreme weather capacity. Even with all this amazing maintenance, the system has physical limits. Drainage systems are built for typical, expected conditions. When an intense, freak storm dumps a massive volume of water in a super short window, even a totally spotless drain is going to back up temporarily. The pipes are only so wide, you know? Maintenance improves runoff movement dramatically, but it simply cannot eliminate all flooding during those extreme weather events. That's exactly why officials actually plan for follow-up cleanings after the first early storms hit. So as maintenance crews are out there busting their backs across the state to protect our streets and waterways, I want to leave you with this. The state is prepping for the next storm. The trucks are out, schedules are set, and the city's arteries are being cleared. But take a look outside your own front door. Is the drain on your street ready for the flood? Or is there a pile of leaves in a stray plastic cup just waiting to block the flow? Next time you walk down your block, take a closer look at those grates. Understanding how this whole system works is step one to protecting your own community. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and hey, stay dry out there.